Ah, you're back. Interesting. Excuse me for a moment. Life is as tedious as a twice-told tale, vexing the dull ear of a drowsy man. True, if the story has been told fully, completely. But the truth of this story isn't fixed. Far from it. A story can change a great deal when told from a different perspective. A chance to walk in different shoes, make fresh choices. You have a funeral to attend. Off you go. Have fun. I do enjoy a good funeral.
Now, Dredge is one of those titles that kind of snuck up out of nowhere for me. You take the role of a fisherman who is out to sea that runs through these various villages and towns doing manual work, getting fish, exploring, and realizing that the darkness within this area goes far beyond what we would originally have believed. Before long, you start noticing some of the fish are a little on the uncanny vibe, and then things at night start trying to rip you apart flesh by flesh. Even during the day, the fear of the sea and being out on your own, that sense of isolation, are all elements that Dredge brings to the forefront with unique side quests that help build out the overall story and enhances that kind of sense of intimacy you almost get with being isolated and then coming through these various towns as the area changes over time and more of the world comes to fruition. Dredge is the perfect example of a non-linear progression narrative in a horror story and giving you the forefront to build your ship as you will and do the best you can to absolve all the wild shit you're going to experience. Now, Blumhouse Productions, Blumhouse Studios, however you may see fit to say the name, they are notorious for horror films in the modern era. They have been on Shark Tank, the owner of the company, and have done an incredible job modernizing AAA horror in cinematography. Well, now they've transitioned to the video game space with their first publication of Fear the Spotlight, and this is a phenomenal story based upon two high school girls as they sneak in after dark to do a Ouija seance, only for everything to go south, both of them to get separated, and now creatures are coming to tear them apart. You have to use stealth to hide through these PS1 era graphics. To great effect, too, I must add, the ambiance in this narrative. There really is this decaying feeling of being in a school haunted overnight with some fantastic monster designs. It takes the premise of two separate narratives, meaning once you finish through the first time, that's only half the experience, as you then get to go through from the other character's perspective to get more elements of the story. It tugs at the heartstrings, and I was not expecting it to go to places it did. I'm thankful it had, especially because the sound design in this game is impeccable. The lighting effects are top notch, and just going through this school at night and other areas I won't spoil, it really messes with your mind in ways that you would expect this to have been the third, fourth, or fifth game from the studio. However, the devs that made it, this was their first major take, and it absolutely nails it. the sound coming from my PS5 DualSense was just as eerie as all the images on screen. And there's no jump scares. There's little, but for the majority of the experience, it's all atmosphere and tension, dialed to 11 with a payout that's well worth the price of admission. We then transition over to Immortality from the one and known Sam Barlow, someone who has worked on Silent Hill, from Silent Hill Shattered Memories, which is a reimagining of the first game in ways that I genuinely loved. But I digress. The guy is a genius, he's an auteur, and in comes Immortality. It's a detective story where you play from the perspective of yourself, having discovered 3 films that have the same main actress through all 3, a Miss Marcel, who goes missing after the 3rd film. One is in the 70s, one is in the 80s, and the last is in the 90s. You watch through all these clips, and within those clips you're looking for clues on how to progress the story and how to figure out, well, where's the next story bit. What gets fascinating is you can freeze any of these clips at any time, fast forward, rewind, and then you can pick an item in that scene, whether it's a prop, a character expression, whatnot, and you'll be transported to another scene across those 3 decades that has that same prop, same emotion, same character. It's a phenomenal tool that's used to great effect, and the jumping around breaks out the notebook, especially when you're trying to piece together all these side stories that the game doesn't actively tell you are going on. This game allows you to experience and try and find one cast, one person, one element across all those films, and then dial it to 11 to try and figure out what's going on. There is an it moment, which is why this game is on this list, and it's one of the greatest gotcha moments I think I've ever experienced in a game. I recommend going in blind because once that moment occurs, everything gets flipped on its head, and the rally to figure out what happened to Miss Marcel is one of the greatest reasons for why gaming is such a phenomenal medium, and this is something only a game could have achieved. Bravo. Next we have Killer Frequency, which is a nice little indie comedic game where we play as a DJ who is going to a small town, and of course there's a serial killer run amok, a legend of the town if you will. Throughout the night we get calls from various names, various people in the town, and we have to help them survive or send them to their ultimate demise while cutting down on the story to figure out who this killer is. It's open world explorative to a degree where you get to go around the facility, you can collect clues, you can talk to your co-host, you can talk to the people, you can play music. There's a lot of immersive sim elements in this game, which is great because there are some shockingly horrific moments tied in with a game that never takes itself too seriously and lets you have fun with the idea of, well, if you were a radio host, what would you do for everyone that's around? Almost like you're a director in your own horror film.
If you're listening to this, I'm probably dead.
Forrest, it's the whistling man.
What the hell? The whistling man?
He was a serial killer back in the 50s. Went around in a freaky mask. Killed about a dozen folks in Gallows Creek. No reason for it. No motive. Hit the button. We have a caller.
Hello, caller. You're live on The Scream with me, Forrest Nash. Talk to me, Murphy. What's wrong?
Oh, the killer got me, man.
We've got a plan, but we can't agree on who should do what.
You want me to be the tiebreaker?
Exactly. We'll need someone on the roof. It's gonna be a hard climb.
Heather's got this. Focus. You got this.
Thank you, Forrest.
Go right.
I'm out. Thank you, Forrest. You're almost out of time. Just do something. Where do I go? Oh, no, Dad. Wait, no.
Just like The Quarry, which at this point needs no introduction.
Welcome to the show.
What is going on here, man?
I just died in your arms tonight.
This is gonna get a little messy.
I should have walked away.
What's going on?
There's something out there.
Run! There is a lot more to this than you realize.
Who should I call? 91-1.
You mean 911? Who says 91-1?
Them's the rules, you noob.
I'm gonna enjoy watching you die.
We gotta get out. Goodbye, cool world.
This isn't a ghost story. It's a creature feature. It's really happening, and you're all in it.
Crow Country is the perfect example of indie horror perfecting a genre. The survival horror genre, which started becoming a household name, especially and predominantly with Resident Evil, Crow Country takes all those elements, throws on a Final Fantasy VII-esque graphical design, an origin story that honestly I've never seen a story quite like this in games, and ties everything together to make one hell of an experience. A main protagonist who journeys out to an amusement park to find the owner with a 9mm on her side, which we can only assume what she's doing there. Little do we know that as soon as we get there, something seems off. This place isn't as abandoned as we thought, especially with other people filling into the amusement park. A lot of unique characters I won't spoil, and then you start running into these hideous creatures. You're finding all these codes around the environment that don't seem to make as much sense now as they will near the end of the experience. And it's one of those games that's, everything about it is as close to perfect as you could imagine. The dialed up narrative is tenfold with shocking twists even to the last minute. You have a lot of forethought with the execution of gameplay, using the environment to get around creatures while also just strapping up for cash with extra items to upgrade your weapons by solving optional puzzles. It's a lighthearted game with dark elements, and that is something I admire. It was one of those experiences that, this list was made for. Crow Country is also one of the greatest games, period, of 2024, and if you haven't yet experienced it, now is the perfect time. Following that up is Phasmophobia, which launched in early access years and years ago, and it is still in early access years and years later, but man is it fun. You and up to a team of 4 people, 4 total. You and up to a team of 3. Let me learn how to count, but counting won't always help you in this situation because you are hunting for ghosts. This game is glorified Clue, where you're basically trying to take elements from the map and figure out, well, what type of ghost is here. The ghosts will come to kill you, and there are so many tools at your disposal that you level up and gain over time, where you and your buddies have to essentially decide, well, how can we track down this ghost? You can be possessed, you can be killed, the scares are randomized, and you really do feel like you're playing against a living AI that's playing in this kind of cat and mouse game through each of the environments. It's terrifying too. Little can go wrong, and then out of nowhere, 2, 3 of your friends get capped immediately, and you're isolated by yourself. This game also has a proximity chat, so you can be on the radio. I had a situation like this where I'm talking to my homie, I go downstairs, get some equipment, come back up, still talking on the radio, only to realize they dead. Or flip side it, you have your radio left on, and then your friend talks to you on said radio while a ghost is in your proximity, then notifying them that you're there. There's so many cool elements to this game, and it's such a treat. While it does lack some of the AAA caliber budget for being an indie style, man, the horrors in this game never stop, and just when you think that it's gotten a little dull or you've seen it all, another trick comes out and it just reels you right back in.
Terrifying. I've never been so aware of what I look like.
Because I have opposite body dysmorphia. I think I'm far more handsome, and then I see myself in the mirror and I'm like, God damn. So yeah, it's annoying to see them render it so accurately.
Detective, I was wondering when you were going to show up.
Pardon me, excuse me. My name is Edward Carnby, private investigator.
We spent a lot of time.
I know they did, and they shouldn't. They should just use the template of Brad Pitt's face, and then we're good to go. But they had to get it right.
Now, we covered Alone in the Dark at the very beginning. It's only fair we come back to it again because I feel like the 2024 reboot is one that the review scene got wrong. This game was absolutely incredible from an existential point. You're bringing on David Harbour and other main AAA voice casts to bring a lot of charm to a narrative.
I just finished a movie which was based on a video game, and I had this kind of newfound appreciation for video games, having not played a lot of them in my own life, and just really kind of getting an insight into how big the gaming world is and the level of craftsmanship that goes into creating these games.
Wait.
So when the offer came through to be in Alone in the Dark, I said that yes immediately. Excuse me? Do you know where I can find Jeremy Hartwood? What I'm most drawn to is the different characters, because they are all so different, so fully fleshed out, and I'm always just so fascinated about their dialogue.
What are you doing? I told you not to lose sight of the girl.
Don't you worry, Mags. I'll find that little rascal.
Who are you people?
You really do feel like when Emily meets a new character, the world is completely changed.
Ruth Talon. Nice to meet you.
I mean, he's kind of a gruff detective, and he's like searching for something, and you know, he's hard-boiled, but he's got some humor to him and stuff like that. He's a bit of a trope or a type, and I like that, and I like the world and sort of how he's exploring this insanity amidst all this horror and stuff. I liked all those aspects.
Oh, she is just peachy, detective.
You want to be able to sort of ride a balanced line of being able to play a character that's a certain way, but also that it doesn't have too many specifics so that someone will distance themselves from that character. You want them to be able to invest in this person.
Well, I guess it's also trying to make sure that there isn't like one tone throughout. Like, yeah, you know it's a horror, but then you don't want her to be one level throughout the whole game. You know, like, yes, there is the kind of scary element, but then she still has to go on a journey and discover different things, and there should still be room to breathe and have a funny moment or a sarcastic moment or a moment of discovery. So it's just trying to really kind of keep all those other beats alive amongst the kind of darkness of it all, I guess, is how I felt anyway.
Detective story where you go to a mental institution of sorts to essentially discover someone that has gone missing. Before you know it, creatures are run amok. These casts seem much more intrinsic in their focus on the mansion than what you may originally be entailed to believe, and then before you know it, you're being transported to all these other crazy dimensions, and the story just goes so off the wall, especially in that final act, that I couldn't help but fall in love.
It transports you into the dark alleyways and into the night.
I mean, it's always trying to create a mystery, right? It's something that's more than just jump scares.
A bit of fighting, demanding puzzles, and a lot of atmosphere.
It maintained some of that weirdness of the old games, but it had like an updated slickness to it that I liked as well.
You haven't seen a little girl by any chance, have you?
I don't think so.
You would have known if you did.
We start our story much like the original. Jeremy Hartwood is haunted by the Dark Man, and he goes to a countryside hospital called Dissected in hope to find some help.
I need to get this letter to my niece. She would understand.
Jeremy sends a disturbing letter to Emily Hartwood, his niece, and it spooks her enough that she hires Detective Edward Carnby to find out what's going on.
Who are you?
Whoa, pardon me, excuse me. My name is Edward Carnby, private investigator. I hope you don't mind we let ourselves inside.
You have action that is serviceable, but you have puzzles that are the best in the genre. Some of the greatest puzzle design I've ever seen in the game, making you feel like a true detective. The original work is tenfold here, and I couldn't put it any better than the cast and creators of this title.
I remember that with the first Alone in the Dark I made in 1992, we were basically doing something that nobody had done before. It was the first time that we could explore a big mansion, fight monsters, and solve difficult puzzles all in real-time 3D.
At the core is a haunted mansion. That's the most important part. It's Derceto, I would say. Feeling that you're trapped inside a kind of small space.
Yeah, I used to say back in the old days that it was another character.
Yeah, for sure.
With all the remakes going on today, you are never sure what you get at the end. I think that Michael and the team at Pieces did a great job preserving the core feeling of the game. They even went further than everything I could expect 30 years ago.
It's really an honor to sort of be a part of the franchise in that sense, because it is such a, again, it can't be overstated. It's so special. It was such a new experience. As a fan of the original, I wanted to bring as much as I could into our version. And they might have slightly different meaning and different reasons to be there, but if you know the old games, you will find a ton of references.
Do I know you from somewhere?
I remember you, Mr. Conby.
I feel the franchise is in good hands now, and I can't wait to play the full game.
To give you a taste of what the full game will be, we also created a prologue, and it features a character from the game called Grace Saunders, who is a little girl, and you play as her walking around Derceto and trying to post a letter. The prologue is the first glimpse into the atmosphere and the mood, and of course the story of the full game. So if you want to have a look, go and download it right now.
They're so creepy.
Our combat is intense and tough, and you will need to use every bullet you can find. And if you run out of bullets,
I'm out of bullets.
you might need to get in close and hit them with a melee weapon. Or if you're lucky, you can find something to throw. As mentioned before, your job is to find out what happened to Jeremy Hartwood. And to do that, you will need to visit some unexpected places. And to get to those places, you'll need to find clues and solve some interesting puzzles. Depending how much you feel like a detective yourself, you can choose how much you want the game to help you find clues and where to go next.
So the biggest creative focus for me has for a long time been to reach something beyond the mundane, something spiritual. Mike, the director, and I, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out what musical direction we wanted to take with this project. And when we finally decided to go for this kind of dark or doom jazz direction, our minds went directly to Jason, who is a master in this genre.
It's a very visual genre of music. The fact that it's inspired from noir films or noir detectives is already a good explanation of why this music fits very well for Alone in the Dark. There's a huge mountain and volcano of reverb with drums and screaming saxophones. To this explosion of hair-rising horror and big chaos.
As the player is drawn deeper into the game world, they will face off with the sinister presence known as the Dark Man.
The Dark Man isn't real, Jeremy. There is nothing he can do to hurt you.
How do you think any of this is happening? How do you still not trust my words?
Fine. Then let me help.
Don't be foolish. He will bury you next to me in his sunken temple for an eternity.
Real or not, something is definitely corrupting the mind of Jeremy Hartwood. Something very, very dangerous.
Alone in the Dark is a masterclass in how to evolve a title from the 90s and bring it into the modern era. You see all these elements change but still stay the same in how it's refined. The vision is there. The authenticity to the periods that they place the game. It's all there, and it's one hell of a journey. This is all followed up by Stay Out of the House, which is Puppet Combo's creation. Puppet Combo is the studio that was basically the Blumhouse of horror games before Blumhouse came into the scene. Now they're the Puppet Combo of Puppet Combo games. And essentially, Stay Out of the House, it pays homage to a lot of those older classic horror adventures. You know, on the film side, you have a lot of elements from Texas Chainsaw Massacre with a hillbilly family that you are trapped inside a house with. You have the Hills Have Eyes with their demented nature and cannibalistic qualities, and essentially you are brought into this house through unfortunate circumstances, which then leads you to trying to find a way to escape. There are multiple days, so you have to go through and be cognizant of the day-to-day routines of all the creatures you're facing. You have the main cannibal that wields a nice little meat hammer. You got the granny, you got a baby that lives in the vents, and you got more underneath the house. It is a phenomenal story with numerous endings and paths you can go through, and I never felt comfortable. You know, it's a cat and mouse game again, just like Alien's Isolation all the way back. But you are going on the offensive now more than ever before. You can turn the house against the creatures and the people living there. And it's a fun journey to kind of get through. That wheel when they see you and that quick, oh snap, I gotta book it out of this type of situation. It's fun. It's engaging. And every time you wake up, it's more and more unsettling as that repetition of all the indoctrination and the true story coming to form, especially with the multiple endings. You know, you see so much from each playthrough that it makes going through multiple times worth it. Even one hell of a prologue that really dials in that fear of working late night at a convenience store. And man, oh man, this game does not run out of tricks. It is fun in every sense of the word, and Puppet Combo's Best easily is one of the greatest games to top off this list. Next up, we have A Plague Tale, which is a puzzle series that I never really would have played had it not been free on PS Plus. I checked it out, fell in love with it, fell in love with the Darun family, and the way this game utilizes tech to bring on thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of rats. Man, this game dials it up. And the sequel, tenfold. We continue the Darun legacy as they're going through country to country to find a cure for the little young boy. And man, oh man, the puzzles take it to the next level. The combat is gruesome, the situations you're put in are dire, and there are some moments in this game where the production quality is rivaling that of cinema. But not only that, there is such a great relationship built between the two that, you know, I kind of resonated with a lot, especially with the idea of how it takes a lot of the principles from season 1 of The Walking Dead with Clementine and Lee Everett. It's brought tenfold and handled incredibly well here. It's a beautiful journey, and none of it feels like filler. Those scenes when you're booking it are tense and relentless. The scenes where you're just hiding, trying to get by without taking another life, it's menacing. And the brutality of this world is up there with, hell, even Game of Thrones. It's one hell of an experience with a fantastic conclusion that I cannot wait to see play out whenever the third title drops, which we better get, or I'ma be pissed.
she really be in this town?
In my restless dreams, I see that town. Silent Hill. You promised you'd take me there again someday, but you never did. Well, I'm alone there now, in our special place, waiting for you.
I got a letter. The name on the envelope said Mary. My wife's name. It's ridiculous. Couldn't possibly be true. That's what I keep telling myself. Mary died of that damn disease 3 years ago. So then why am I looking for her? Our special place. What could she mean? This whole town was our special place. Could Mary really be here? Is she really alive? Waiting for me?
Tying everything together, we have the Silent Hill 2 remake, one of the greatest remakes I've ever played, and the quintessential psychological survival horror story. There's the original that came out way, way back, but I feel like the remake not only enhances the vision of every single element from the original, it's a perfect embodiment of what this list is about. You're forced into a brilliant story about a man who's looking for his wife, someone who passed away, but he had seen a letter with their name on it referencing their special place in Silent Hill. You meet a cast that, I simply can't spoil. A lot of this game goes into some sensitive subject matter, but there's such this nuanced ability of the gamer and the player of always being pushed forward to want to explore further and further from the original to the remake. What makes this game so beloved is it nailed psychological horror from a gameplay perspective. The way you experience the game, the decisions you make, or the game doesn't even tell you is a decision, it makes it feel like, I think the quote to kind of sum it up best is the best tests in life are the ones where you don't realize you're being tested. You don't realize it's a test. That's what Silent Hill 2 did, and it's a masterclass in having that sensational realization in the character just as James comes to terms with the reality of the situation. There's so many analyses and multi-hour videos that dictate kind of how you should feel when playing this game, how you should interpret James's actions, but the fact that James is such a beautiful canvas for the player's actions, and that comes out in the way he is projected through cutscene, it's incredible. And this is one of those stories that it shows the power in horror as a medium as it makes us witness and ask questions about subject matter that's uncomfortable. It's the lighting, it's the atmosphere, it's the sound design, it's the echoes, it's the absence of sound that is a character in itself just as much as the town is. It's the combat, it's the meaty fluidity of how you traverse environments and piece together details that only make sense on a second playthrough. Horror gaming takes that idea of facing sensitive subject matter and it embraces our ability as gamers to overcome obstacles that would terrify us in real life. It, as much as horror is about disempowering the player, through physicality and gameplay, it's just as authentic in empowering the mind, body, and spirit to overcome things we never would have thought we could have before. Now that is gaming with a purpose.
I've been taking some time to be distant. I've been taking some time to be still. I've been taking some time to be by myself, and I've spent half my life ill. But just as sure as the tide starts turning, just as sure as the night has dawned, just as sure as the rainfall soon runs dry when you stand in an eye of a storm. I was made to be tested and twisted. I was made to be broken and beat. I was made by his hand, it's all part of his plan that I stand on my own 2 feet. And you know me, my will is eternal. And you know me, you've met me before. Face to face with a beast, I will rise from the east and I'll settle on the ocean floor. And I go by many names also. Some people know me as hope. Some people know me as the voice that you hear when you loosen the noose on the rope. And you know how I know that I'll prosper? 'Cause I stand here beside you today. I have stood in the flames that cremated my brain, and I didn't once flinch or shake. So cower at the man I've become when I sing from the top of my lungs. That I won't retire, I'll stand in your fire, inspire that me to be strong. And when I am gone, I will rise in the music that I left behind. Ferocious, persistent, immortal like you, we're a climate to different sides. Ooh.